What's going on, guys? It's Ed here from Geek, and we're back with another agency roundtable, or Google Ads agency roundtable. I'm here with Nick, Dustin, and Mark again, and today we're here to talk about hiring in-house versus hiring an agency. We're going to go through the pros and cons of each, and that's it. So let's hop right into it. Let's start with Mark today. We're going to go reverse order. Mark, let's talk through the pros and cons of hiring in-house versus hiring an agency to run your Google ad campaigns.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an illusion sometimes with in-house that I've got immediacy, and you can walk over to the person and just say something, and there is that. But we also know how employees are. You know, if anyone thinks that employee equals immediate results, you haven't had employees probably. I think the main thing that jumps out to me with having an agency as opposed to having a person is that the agency typically has depth or width. So if that person's out or sick or goes on vacation, you're not suddenly, if your in-house employee is not there, you don't have any Google Ads support. Whereas with an agency, you've typically got more than one person that can step in and fill in. The other thing is that agencies are constantly focusing on working on process improvements and working on strategies and tactics to improve their service. They've got a wide range of clients that they're working with. They can test it across multiple clients. They can implement new software. I think an in-house person is less likely to have the, maybe not the desire to do all that, but maybe they don't even have the authority or the budget to test new things, do new things. I think the main advantage is being able to just walk over to the corner. People feel better when they can just walk over and say, you know, hey, Sally or Joe, do this thing. But I think that there's some things that you gain, but there's a lot of things that you lose for sure in the process.
Yep, I'm with you. Dustin, how about you?
So I think that there's a cost benefit analysis you gotta look at. So if we're talking about just the cost for a decent PPC person that's going to do a fairly decent job in the US right now, you're at least $60,000 a year. And that's not even somebody who's really great. So if you've got an account that's large enough to where that, you know, $5,800 or whatever, and that's if they're W-2, now you've got payroll tax, and now you've got resources, you've got a computer, you've got to deal with their stuff that they bring, the baggage they might bring to the company. So there's that. But if you got a big enough account, a big enough need, right, and they're going to spend a full-time worker on that account, it might make sense. But I usually find that that's companies that are, you know, doing several $1 million a year, right? Like, and I don't just mean that in revenue only, but also like they're spending a lot in ads in maybe multiple channels. Maybe not just Google, maybe it's Google, Facebook, Bing, you know, TikTok nowadays, whatever. Then maybe it makes sense to have that extra. But now you got a full stack marketer. Now you went from 60 to 100 plus K, right? So now you go back to this cost benefit. So I think, you know, for the most part, when you think about having an in-house person, which all agencies basically have in-house teams, just like your company would, it's just that we can afford to have them because they're working on multiple accounts for different clients. And if you can't support them working full time at a wage that, especially right now in the US, is very high, or if you want somebody to remote yourself, that has its own challenges, like managing that person. Plus, as a company, if you don't have training on knowing if they're doing a good job, I've seen plenty of in-house marketing people blow smoke up their bosses' wazoo because they can talk a good game, but when you look at the results, they're not there, or they can justify not having results and blame this or that. With an agency, I think it's a little bit different because, like Mark said, you have more industry knowledge. You're not just looking at one account. You're not just focused like this with blinders. You see things that are going on. You talk to probably other people in the industry. So I'll stop there. But I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I feel like a fractional Google Ads person for your team or whatnot is a smart move, because you can't afford to hire like me directly, like full time to work there, because you're going to spend a lot of money. But if you hire our agency, you're basically getting that for as much time as it takes to get you the result you're looking for. So I feel like it's a good trade-off, right? You don't pay for a really good person full-time or a team full-time. You just pay for the time that you really need for them to work at that account, which is typically a lot cheaper, and you still get a good result. That's how I see it.
Yep, I'm with you. Nick, how about you?
Money.
Money. If you like money, don't hire somebody internally. I mean, It's just that simple, right? Like we have this question a lot with clients that are growing. So we'll take a client from a solo agent, and all of a sudden they have a team, then they have a larger team. Now they have a marketing team. Now they have a whole back end staff, which is awesome. We've had it a couple of times. They come in and said, well, I hired my assistant's cousin, and they actually know about Google AdWords, Google, and they call it that. I'm like, what's Google Ads now? And we know about Bing. Well, it's Microsoft now. So when they hire that person internally, they're doing it under the impression that they're going to save money, and that's it. Like, I've never had anybody come to us and say, we're going to take this in-house because we feel more comfortable that they have they understand what our goals and our agenda is. That never happens. And like Dustin said, and like Mark said, you've got a level of knowledge that it just isn't there. Plus you're going to start paying payroll. Plus, if they're not a contract employee, some states you can't fire them if you find out that they're not good. I mean, that's a tough one there. And honestly, even if you look at it, if we go and we show our clients, it's sometimes when people ask us this question, I say, okay, let's say you're going to hire a college kid that has is working through their marketing degree. I take in one or two of those young adults every year and have to teach them about digital marketing, because you're not being taught that inside the universities. And the universities that are just skimming the top, just giving them a basis level of, hey, this is what you should know. So let's say you hire one of those as an intern or apprenticeship, and you're paying them $15 an hour or even $10 an hour. They're not working 40 hours. Nobody works 40 hours. They work 32. So you're paying them for 40. They're working 32. You're already at, $30,000 a year for an intern or an apprentice at that price, where most of our clients come in at $500 a month. So $6,000 or $30,000. And that person has to beat me. They're not going to beat me. Nobody's going to beat me in my industry. We're pretty confident on that. So you're upside down 25 grand out the gate, and they're going to take your money and blow through it trying to learn. And the worst part is the Google only changes things once every quarter, once every month. There's new updates. So good agencies that are worth their salt are going to be making sure that they're staying on the up and up on all the changes, and making sure that they're following through on each one of those programs. And they also can make those adjustments with confidence, instead of, a lot of times we see people that'll make a bunch of changes all at once and then figure out that they broke it and try to back off those changes, and they can't back them all off. So, it comes down to money. You're spending way too much. Now, I don't think it's bad to have a marketing liaison in your office. If you've got a big enough stack, and Dustin mentioned that, we love working with marketing teams that appreciate us for what we do. There are some of them that try to remove us because they think that we're going to take their job, or their boss is going to fire them because they're not doing some work. But we always try to help position as like, hey, we're here for you. We speak your language. Let us do what we do well, and then it'll make you look like a hero to the owner.
Yep, I'm with you.
A couple of things I wanted to add, if I could.
Yeah, go
real
for
quick. One thing is we do a lot of work for agencies. Agencies will bring in a certain number of PPC accounts, and they suddenly start looking at what they're spending with us, and then start thinking, well, I could hire someone, but they have to remember that income isn't guaranteed. Those clients could go away. Mm-hmm. And with an agency, your costs drop as your clients dissipate or whatever. You still have that full-time employee that you hired. You still have to pay them. What are you going to do then? And The other thing I wanted to mention is having an SEO person in-house and handing them Google Ads stuff is not the same as having a Google Ads person in-house. And the final note I would make is that an agency will never warm up leftover fish in your microwave. So it's a thing you'll never have to deal with an agency that you might have to deal with an employee.
Very true.
Yeah,
great. The fish smell is definitely a culture killer. To plan what you guys have all said, I would say going with Nick's example, the 30K roughly, and paying $6 grand for an outsourced management solution through an agency. With that remaining 25 and change you've got there, you could easily go out and hire a full-time badass SEO firm to work on your SEO. You could probably hire someone to work on your Facebook ads. You might be able to get a contract email marketer in there as well. So like for the cost of one entry level digital marketing specialist that is a jack of all trades, master of none, you'd be able to hire 2, 3, 4 agencies that specialize in their given services in your market. So just that alone, unless you get to a situation where you're in a multi-million-dollar business with a significant ad budget. But we all know that most of us work in local markets and most client budgets are below $5,000 a month. So if you just do the math on it, does it make sense to spend $5 or $6 grand a month, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grand a month to hire someone to manage something that is roughly at the same cost? It just doesn't make financial sense when you could, break that out into a handful of other services. So I'm with you guys. Anything else you guys want to throw into the mix?
We worked with I worked with a couple of $1 billion organizations and a couple of massive clients. We got clients that spend 100K or 40K a month. And we've done it where we've had that parallel work where they do have somebody in-house. Those are the people that we usually communicate with. But at the same time, we sort of tell them, let us drive the car. We'll let you navigate. We'll make the changes. If there's changes you want made, run through it with us. And essentially how we position ourselves with the powers that be or with the decision makers is that your internal marketing team is good, but this is all we do. This is our specialty. Mm-hmm. So instead of having to continue, we'll help train them. We'll help navigate what they're, what you're telling them you want. When they come to us, they don't fully understand it. So there's still value in having those agencies do those reviews and be around. It's still pretty shocking. I mean, a $1 billion organization sitting and talking with somebody and they don't know how to get into Google Analytics, but they were hired and they were making $60,000 a year and not knowing what they're doing. People interview well. People don't perform. People don't always perform well. Everybody seems to interview well, but performance is different, right?
I also think there's strategy too, that nobody really talks about that, because you can find a button pusher all over the place, right? You don't need, I mean, I'm just going to leave it there, right? We can find people that understand how to toggle switches, right. But if you don't understand which ones to toggle or put a plan together to hit a certain goal, like, hey, we want to get, like, maybe your strategy has to change because something changes in the market, or your service, your products change. You want to bring a new product or service to market, or your pricing is changing. I mean, who knows what could happen? You got somebody that just knows how to, knows what they know now, but they don't grow because maybe as an employer, you're not giving them the time and the freedom to grow, or because they feel like, why am I going to grow? I already know this business. They get bored, right? Now you got to keep them all entertained. You got to cheerlead them and that's always fun, right? Cheerleading people to keep them motivated, or replace them. And we know what happens if you replace them. Guess what? You start over. And most of the time you're having to go through this again. And how do we know? Because we're agency owners. We have employees that do this. That's how I know, because I have a great team. It's awesome, but not everybody that joins works out. And you want to try to do the best you can to keep people motivated, incentivized to do a good job for clients. But it's really no different when you hire somebody in-house. Just that the burden's now on you to make sure all those things are in place. And it's not easy. I mean, like, the way I look at it is, what we do for our clients is let them run their business so we can handle the Google thing. Like, look, just do what you do. Just make sure when we send you calls, you answer the freaking phone. Make sure you get back to people. Make sure you do that part. But aside from it, like, you shouldn't have to worry about what I'm doing. When I say worry, I mean actually worry. I don't mean you shouldn't know. I mean, you should know what we're doing, but you shouldn't have to be concerned with, okay, is this being handled? Is that? No, I want to make sure that we're you're good over here. If there's a problem that we see coming down the pipe, like this whole call rail thing, we'll email you, we'll let you know what's going on. We'll figure out a solution. We'll be in front of that the best that we can be. So you don't have to think about it and worry about it. With an employee, probably it's not going to happen very easily. I mean, that's a very rare employee. There's a lot of good ones out there, but man, I mean, they're going to want more money and they're going to be harder to find. So it's a whole nother game. I mean, it's just not as simple as finding a good agency in my mind,
Yep. I think it becomes harder to find employees that want to, or have the ability to focus on the strategy piece rather than just the tactical piece. Let's segue into another topic that we were talking about prior. And that is Google Ads, once the leads are generated, and our job as the agency that's driving traffic and leads, Our job kind of stops at that point. Let's talk about the focus of companies having a sales process and answering the phone and that kind of stuff. So, Nick, I know this is a topic you are extremely passionate about. So if you've got your, if you can flip over your whiteboard in the back and show us your Glengarry,
Right.
Exactly.
The leads are weak.
Walk through sales process, walk through, okay, the lead's been generated, now what?
Yeah. So I'll start this with, I will, once this posts on YouTube, I'll post the Glengarry Glen Ross clip so everybody can see that. I've sent that several times to clients when they come back and say the leads aren't good or the leads are weak. The leads aren't weak. You're just not doing your job. Ultimately, our gigs, when people ask us in public, what do we do for a living? I'm an internet traffic broker. So my job is to find you the best traffic at the best price and then deliver that to your website, which generates leads. And then after that, I'm done, right? Too often we have clients that don't have the sales process in place or don't have their follow-ups in place. So we'll do our best to point them in the right direction. There might be some great coaches out there in the real estate world. There might be some follow-up systems that they can implement into their CRM. That's a plug and play. But we always tell them speed kills. And if somebody comes and fills out that form on your site, I can show you on analytics that they are there for 8 to 10 minutes. You have an opportunity to call them while they're looking at a house on the website. If you do not take that opportunity, then you're just telling us that you don't want to make money, right? But yeah, we've gotten to the point at our company where if we have a sales call with somebody or an exploratory call, we don't really even call them sales calls, but if we're talking with somebody and they sound like they're a little green on this follow-up, or they haven't done internet leads before, then we tell them there's some stuff you should have in place before you start throwing cash out the window, because we know we can generate you leads, and I can show you that these leads that you're going to be getting are the same leads, same style leads somebody, your peer is getting in a city similar size. They're making a lot of money. That doesn't guarantee you're going to make money. You have to have a good follow-up. So we try to help them, help steer them. If they sound like they just don't know what they're doing, we'll tell them outright, you should get your systems in place before you come work with us. But that's another reason we do no contracts, where it's month to month. You come and go as you please, because if I dump 100 leads on your plate and you tell me you didn't get a hold of any of them, that's an issue. If you tell me those leads are terrible, that's an issue in this market. And in the way we've seen it for the last few years, if you're not getting on the phone with people, if you're not able to communicate with anybody, then the problem isn't us. The problem, it's not the faucet. It's the strainer that you've got underneath there. It's straining everything out.
Got it. Dustin, how about you?
So I kind of tend to look a little bit further down the funnel when I can. Like, I realize that for the most part, as a Google Ads agency or whatever, if we're running Facebook ads or whatever, because we do a little bit of both in Microsoft, is that, I think that our main job is getting traffic to convert the best that we can at the lowest cost possible for the highest volume within the budget. And of course, as much quality control as we can do on the front end. I tend to look at the back end a little bit too, and just try to make sure that things are playing out according to what we think, and look for themes, right? Maybe we're getting a bunch of calls for something that's similar to what we do, but we don't do it. Okay, let's get rid of that. Or since we do e-commerce clients as well, or we still have a lot from before, sometimes like products don't convert for whatever reason. Now, I think the big difference is, like Nick said, you have to be on the follow-up, right? So if we're talking leads, you need to do your part, have systems in place, have processes. We actually use a system that will automatically text somebody if you miss their call, or when they fill out a contact form, we'll automatically text them. They have to be able to use, the software to respond, or they can do it in other ways. But the point of it is I'm trying to make it harder for them to fail in that regard. But at the end of the day, I can't take somebody to a sale, right? I'm not booking their appointment. That's on them. So I'm trying to do my best to kind of work within that realm and offer a little bit more help where it's reasonable to do so, because I know how valuable it is. But at the end of the day, like, the other thing we forget is, like, for home services and for local, this is maybe a little bit less of the case, but I know for e-commerce, this is definitely a big deal, which is your offer. Like, what is the reason somebody should reach out to you? Because what happens is, I find for newer advertisers, or maybe it's a niche that's not really as solidified, if you don't have something of value for people, it doesn't matter what you do on the traffic side, right? Like if you can send a bunch of people to a crappy offer and it's gonna suck, right? It doesn't matter how good the ads are, it doesn't matter what bid strategy you use, the offer sucks. You could have a really good offer and a mediocre traffic person and get decent results because the offer is so good. So I think in terms of conversion, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think as PPC guys, sometimes like the burden's put on us to make somebody's stuff convert.
Right.
Well, I can't make your stuff convert. Like that's your job to make it a converting service, offer, product, value proposition. My job is to get it in front of the people who are most likely to do that converting, right? And at a cost that will hopefully back into where you need to be. But I do find that a lot of times people who hire cool ads agencies expect that you have this magic landing page that's going to magically turn this person who just, they just can't resist your service or your product now because of the way you did it. And it's just totally a disconnect from reality. And that's something that I think from a conversion standpoint, people should bear in mind that, this is a team effort, right? You have a business with a product or service, and we're going to get you the best quality traffic the internet has at this moment, which is people looking for whatever that is. And we're going to try to connect you. And sometimes if they don't want to buy, you might want to rethink not just, the traffic side, but also where are they going? What's the offer they're seeing? How are you handling that lead or that follow-up or whatnot? So I think that there's definitely more to the story than just what we do on the traffic side. Now, as an agency, like Nick said, that might be all you're engaging with us for. But as a business owner, you got to be thinking further down the line than just,
Right.
Oh, it's the traffic guy's problem because these people who look for my service specifically in my area didn't want to buy from me. Well, they're going to buy from somebody. It's not, they're definitely going to buy. It's not from you. So why is that? That's just what I'm saying.
Got it. All right. And Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, you guys covered a lot there. I do view our role in our agency as handing off a marketing qualified lead. And that's what we try to do. We don't get too involved we don't get involved at all in the sales process, but we are aware of whether phone calls get picked up or not, because that's a yellow flag, at least to me, if everything's going to an answering machine. And we get call transcripts for most of our clients, so we know how they're answered. So that's definitely a thing. We try to discuss the sales process, or bring the sales process up during our own sales process to find out how they handle leads. If you're a one person, one truck type of business, it's going to be harder for you to pick up the phone. That's something that you want to address right up front. And I've had a situation where we were working with a small roofing contractor. Everything was going to voicemail. I called him and said, Daniel, you got to pick up your phone. And that transformed his business essentially, because all of a sudden he started closing deals. Problem is that people, yeah, can you imagine that? And in my own experience, just following up often gets me the deal, because they're like, well, I reached out to 3 agencies. Those other 2 didn't talk to me. One thing I had recently with a client is, well, when I get a form fill that includes a phone number, I email them back because they're shy. They don't want to call somebody. They don't want to interrupt their day. I'm like, call that person, because they're probably online looking at the next potential service provider right now. And if they call before you call, not everyone's checking their email or responding. I would send an email and I would call. That sort of thing. Yep. So we advise, but we don't become too involved in the sales process. What we'd like to have is get a feedback loop from the client on the quality of the leads, which is not always 100% accurate, because anyone that knows sales and marketing knows that sales always says their leads suck. The lead quality is weak. That's just a thing between sales and marketing. Sales wants them, marketing to hand them, a silver platter with everything but the check signed on it. So there's always some, but we like to get feedback to find out about the quality of the leads to make sure that we're on track there. Does that make sense? The other thing that we do sometimes on the upfront, we do a strategy with the client before they even get into Google Ads, because we found out people are asking us, what should my budget be? Well, off the top of my head, that's an impossible thing for me to answer. There's a lot of factors there. Do you want to own the whole market, what's your competition? What is the local competition? I know what it is in general. So we go through a process sometimes that we call Google Ads strategy planning, GASP, to try to figure out upfront what's going to make them successful when they launch. Do they have an offer? And the reason I mentioned that as part of sales is because it gives you a sense of where the company's head is at in terms of their own knowledge of their own market. Because lots of times people don't know the market they're in their own space. Does that make sense? Like they don't even know who the competitors are, what their offers are, who they're really up against in their own market space. So it makes it harder to launch a successful campaign, because you launch the campaign and then you're trying to backfill the offer and backfill, against the competition and things.
Yep. I'm there. I'm with you. One other thing I'd throw out there is the amount of follow-up that is needed to actually connect with a lead is often shocking for people.
One email, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. One email, one text, one phone call. Yeah, 8. I was gonna say 7. So 7 to 10.
Actually higher. They redid that stat that said 8
12.
touches. It's now like 12 or something. We heard that at the event in Miami.
But they call those touches, the emails count as touches now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if a client says you can't get a hold of the lead and you ask what's the follow-up cadence been, and you find out it's been one phone call, you have to educate them on a proper sales follow-up. You want to be that stalker until you make that initial contact. Then you don't need to be calling 5 times a day. But realistically, that person is as hot of a lead as you're going to get. That person is in enough of a frenzy that they've gone out looking for the solution, and you're saying that person's only worth a single phone call. Think about that for a sec. So if you flip it and say, I'm going to call that person until I connect with them, and have that mentality that you're going to call 4 times for the first day, and then 3 times, 2 times, and then just continue the follow-up until you actually connect with them, I think you'll be in a much better situation. And that's across the board in all niches.
When I first started in the industry, there wasn't texting, there wasn't all there wasn't the video messaging, there wasn't any of that. So I asked an agent, like, he was telling me how much money he was making off our solution. It was an absorbent amount of money. Like, he was making $500K personal off of it, and he wasn't spending probably $2,500 a month. And I said, what's the story? And he said, I dial for dollars, man. I dial till they buy, till they die, or till they call the cops. Like, literally, it's like, I dial for dollars. And that was a great point. He's like, they're either going to answer that phone at some point and say, please stop calling me, or I already bought, or hey, this person doesn't exist, right? So yep. I mean, at first when I heard it, I was like, God, that's crazy. But then it makes a ton of sense. If your job is to make money, then dial for dollars.
Yep. You've got to have a certain type of personality to be willing to pick up the phone and make that dial. So if you don't have that person that enjoys running into brick walls and getting knocked down, you probably have the wrong person in the sales role. And that's part of it. Sometimes leaning on your front desk people, Deborah, that is answering the calls at the dental office for implants, shouldn't be the one trying to make sales calls and doing the follow-up to get them scheduled in the chair. So hiring correct for sales, I think, is really important, and not just putting an admin on it or a secretary type role on it, putting a salesperson in there that actually enjoys the hunt and enjoys the follow-up and the chase. Because while these are inbound leads, if you don't make that connection and it's a form submission, you do need to chase. You do need to have someone that enjoys that stuff, or all the leads are going to look like they're bad leads, when in reality, you're just not having a proper sales cadence put in, a sales system put in place.
Yeah,
we've seen that situation. I was going to
mention that about the receptionist too. Is that's the salesperson for most businesses. They think that person. I mean, it's not fair to them. They didn't get a job to be a salesperson, but they don't think that they're a salesperson. They think that they're just answering calls, but you're not. Now you have to follow up with those leads. You can't. And people that put them in that position, it's their fault for putting them in that position, because that's a business development role. You need to get somebody that can turn people into dollars. And if the receptionist is the first line of defense and takes the incoming phone calls and can do it, then that's great. But once they can't connect with that person because it's a web form or something like that, you need to hand it off to somebody who's going to, like you said, Ed, like, take it seriously. And one of the things that we've actually done, because this is another issue that comes up, is web forms, right? I know, Ed, your guys are more call driven, and that's great. And I prefer calls too. At the same time, people want to fill out forms, so maybe they're at work or they're doing something, or we're doing Facebook lead ads or something like that. And so one of the issues we run into is contact rate. So like getting a hold of people. So one of the things that we've done is actually use some automation to where a web form comes in, and depending on if the person, that the client of ours is using our system or not, it'll text them back and say, hey, we saw your web form. We're gonna give you a call in a few minutes from this number, because a lot of times people will not answer the call. I've been on this recording. I've gotten like 3 calls from numbers I don't know. I don't answer them. I don't care who you are. If it's that important, leave me a message. If it's not, I won't call you back. And the whole world is like that. Nobody will answer the phone for a number they don't know anymore. So like with, I think the texting side is just, okay. And I'm not trying to sell texting here. I'm just saying that most people will see it. They get open like within moments, and people have the choice to respond or not. And maybe it's just like, hey, this is Dustin with PPC Pros. I just saw you submit a contact form. Do you got a minute to chat? Is this a good time? And now you're being respectful. You're not just randomly calling them out of the blue. And what we found is, when we've done this in an automated fashion, like for some surgeon clients, and really we do this for a lot of clients, I've found that people will respond like, hey, I'm at work right now, or hey, can you call me after 6? And so now they're telling you when to call them. Now you know where you're going to call them from, and you know when to call them. And they've just proven that, guess what? The leads are not crap. They just are not ready to talk to you right now. So that was one of the reasons that we did that also. So I can show people, oh, Facebook leads are garbage. Okay, well, I just sent them a text that says, hey, you were interested in this offer. You know, we're going to give you a call at this time. And they said, hey, call me after 6. Is that lead crap? Why would she tell you to call after 6? Why? You tell me. So like, I feel like there's more we can do, not so much as agencies, but as business owners thinking about this process to set up your front desk person for success, I guess, if that's how you're going to go about it, or getting somebody good. So I don't need to talk too much. Mark, go ahead. Yeah,
Debbie at the front desk sometimes, I mean, it's just more work for her sometimes. If a call comes in and she has to have Debbie might not want a new client, not want to onboard a new client today. And I've heard the person that answers the phone, you know, the person who's calling wants to reach Joe's tree service because he's got a tree down in his front yard. And he says, is this Joe's tree service? No, this is Jill's tree service. Oh, I was trying to reach Joe's because I got a tree down in my front yard. And then they're like, oh, let me get the number for that tree service. I'll send you over there. Like, no, that is a freaking lead. Tell them I'll come out in 15 minutes and do an inspection and give you a price, you know, but the person at front desk just like, oh, let me help you out. I'll send you over to Joe's tree service. Sure. So yeah, having it hurts me to see us go through all the work to develop leads and have them stop right there, you know, at the client and not be handled well, put it that way.
Right.
Yep. I'm with you.
Not that any of us are perfect at handling our leads or anything, but you can be really bad at it too. And it's not going to help you it's not going to behoove you to spend a lot of money on marketing if you're not dealing with the leads well when they come in the door.
If you look at a big sales organization like Cardone, and you look at his company, it's sales reps that answer the calls. And then if it's a client, they'll direct you to the correct department, or you've already got a direct dial number and you're just going through the main line. So do as they say. Get the calls over to a salesperson that's going to directly do it. Now, it's not it may not work for everybody, but as soon as you can have a full-time salesperson on staff, they should be getting every phone call. You know, eliminate the middleman in there, eliminate Debbie at the front desk if you can afford to do that, and just get calls directly into salespeople's hands, because at the end of the day, it's an inbound lead, and nothing's better than an inbound lead in sales except for like a referral. But
I think the worst thing actually is that system that picks up the phone and just says, you know, if you know your number.
We make it. We won't let them do that. We say it has to go to a direct dial. We don't let it put through there, because as soon as that happens, they're not doing it for whatever reason. They just hang up, and that's a waste of money. Guys, anything else you want to add in here? If not, I got to cut this one short because I got to get into a meeting.
Okay.
Oh, just hire an agency and don't hire Google, and follow up with your leads. Yeah. And don't get pissed off your traffic guy if you don't answer the phone for the calls. And, you know, you can grow your business by answering the phone and following up with leads, like with the same amount of traffic, guys. It's like costs you $0 extra to do that. And just do your part, right? It's a team effort. There you go.
Our job is to bring the horse to water, not to make it drink.
And give it some salt, maybe. That's about all we can do.
Exactly. Yeah. There you go. Love it. Awesome. Nick, Dustin, Mark, thank you very much for your time today. Until next
You
week.
guys were
Talk to you
great.
guys later.
Guys.
Good.
Later.